My people, what's up? It's Kenneth here with StreamHomeLoan.com, dressed like I just came from court. You know why? Because I did just come from court. And I got a jewel for anyone out there that deals with court orders, right? So I'm a realtor and a mortgage broker. As you know, my main thing is mortgage brokering and lending. We're an actual lender now. But on real estate transactions that I'm involved with, I act as the realtor. And on this transaction that it's me and my wife, I'm acting as our realtor, and so I'm handling all the transaction. Obviously, this transaction was a trust sale, right? Meaning that the property is in a trust. The trust has multiple beneficiaries, and the property's being sold, and then the funds will be divided up amongst the trustees. Whenever that happens, I won't say whenever, but a lot of times when that happens, there's a court confirmation required to approve the sale and to push forward. So for us as the buyers, we had to come to court. We had to come to court to get the court confirmation before we can proceed with closing our transaction. The whole fear and the whole concern this whole time was that after the court order, or after the judge granted the court order, we wouldn't be able to close for multiple weeks, right? As anyone in the loan industry knows that right now, we're April 7th, right? So right now we're approaching tax day. Anyone in the loan industry knows that once you hit the new tax deadline date, the lender is going to require updated proof of income verifying income that you have now filed with the IRS. So up until this moment, we're able to qualify, or up until the 15th, we're able to qualify using our 2020 tax returns, because 2021 aren't necessarily late yet. Once you hit that deadline date, the lender's gonna say, okay, now you're past the deadline, you need to provide last year's tax returns. What does that mean for a self-employed person like myself that doesn't have pay stubs that take taxes out? That means that when I file these taxes, I'm gonna have to pay that amount immediately that I owe, so that the lender can use that actual taxable income, which wouldn't have been a problem. It would have just created a bunch of additional hurdles, right? We would have to put the file back into underwriting. We'd have to turn in new documentation. We have to extend the rate lock, which right now in this market is very expensive. It's ridiculous to extend your interest rate a couple of weeks on this size of a loan. You're looking at $3,000-$4,000, right? That's just money that just to give you an extra week or so, or a couple of weeks to close a loan, you're gonna pay a lot of money. So that was the big fear going into this court date. Like, how long is it gonna take for the judge to give us our court order? I had asked multiple people, how long does it usually take? Because this is my first time dealing with a trust sale. And they're like, oh, it always takes a few weeks. It always takes this time. Could take, a month. I'm like, oh, hell no. If that was the case, it's gonna create a whole bunch of hurdles for us. It's just gonna be a big headache. And it could put the whole transaction in jeopardy, just because there's a lot of moving parts going on, right? So I was hell-bent on making sure, if possible, that we're able to get that court order today or at the latest tomorrow, so that our loan can fund. So here's a tip for anyone that is looking to get a court order expedited. It's a simple tip. You gotta grovel. Please, Your Honor, please, can you please, God damn it. No, so what happened was, in a trust sale, there's usually an overbid option, which means that it's public knowledge. Someone can come into the court and say, hey, I'm here for this purchase too, and I'm an overbidder, right? So overbids are usually going to require to be at least 5% above the sale price of the property that's been agreed to. And then that person can overbid, and if the judge approves that overbid and says, okay, hey, you've overbid and your ability to close is reasonable, we're going with the overbid, or we would have went into some sort of back and forth. Thank God there was no one overbidding there. We were able to just go with the sale the way it was, and that worked out great. So after the judge said, okay, I approve the sale of the transaction in so many words, I went up there, or we went up there, we were standing there as he approved the sale, and right when it was done, waited my turn, I'm like, Your Honor, I kept on putting my hand up, put my hand up, and he looked at me, and he gave me the look of, you can speak now, son. And I was like, Your Honor, we're in a very, very tight situation with our loan. Our interest rate is gonna unlock. He's like, when's it gonna unlock? And I'm like, tomorrow. And he's like, okay, that's all. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, they may grant an extension. It'll be very expensive. Not sure, but we just really need that expedited court order. We need that court order immediately if possible. With no real stress, I didn't really have to push. He just turned to the clerk and said, okay, have them email it to me and I'll get that signed and back to him right away. That was it. There's the magic. There's the simplicity of it. A lot of people go with what they hear. Oh, it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, well, let's plan for that. For me, I just don't operate that way. Until the judge were to tell me no, I was going to keep on pushing to figure out what it's going to take to get that court order, because I knew, like, my wife's an attorney. She's like, all it really is the judge just stamping the document and making it final, and then we're able to use that. So I had a feeling that, hey, if we can communicate with the judge, if we are able to really articulate what's going on to him, then that person, unless they had a real reason to prevent it, then they would probably likely go with it to make everything easy for everyone involved. For us, obviously, so we can close the loan, and for the trust, so that they can actually wrap up the trust, and, you know, for all the beneficiaries. So the judge told us that he'd have the court order for us, you know, within the day. Once we get it over to him, he'll sign it immediately. That was music to our ears. So if you ever have a situation where you're in a trust sale, probate's a little bit different. Probate sales usually are gonna take that full extended time frame, but I would still advise, if you're at a point where you know that you're ready to close and all you need is the judge's orders, ask the judge directly. Let him know the extenuating circumstances that are making it to where you need that court order as soon as possible. And if there's not some specific reason as to why they can't do it, I would think that in a lot of scenarios they're going to go ahead and do it to make all parties happy, and to get the transaction closed sooner rather than later, because as we all know, time is the killer of all deals. You know, the longer something takes, the more expensive it gets, the more likely the buyers are looking at different options, the more likely the buyers are over the transaction or stressed out by it, so they start to kind of like lose that emotional attachment to whatever they're buying. You know, market shifts can happen, things like that can happen and really throw off a transaction. So time is truly the killer of a lot of deals, and if you can avoid that extended time frame, your deal's gonna close quicker. So once again, just ask the judge, be polite. It's okay to kiss a little butt and, you know, grovel a little bit, but that wasn't even really necessary. It was just about really articulating why we needed the expedited court order. And the judge was down. He made it happen, or he's making it happen. We should have that at some point today. But I just want to drop that tidbit on you, because a lot of people think that there's no way to get an expedited court order in these situations. I know in different types of court cases, you can probably get a court order same day a lot of times, because there's not like beneficiaries involved. It's just like the judge said this, let's get this down to the county clerk or to the clerk, and then they can get that down to being recorded. And then from there, it's public record you can have access to. But in a scenario where you have beneficiaries, you have trustees, you have realtors involved, you have lenders involved, that's where sometimes there's a little bit more layers to it. But in this situation, it worked out. Ask the judge, be polite, be respectful, explain your extenuating circumstances, and fingers crossed, they give you a court order right away. All right, good luck everyone. 100 years of wealth to you and yours. If you didn't like and subscribe, you suck. Like and subscribe now. Leave a comment. Let me know if you have any questions. And I'll be back with some more videos for you guys. Have a great one.